Disclaimer: lore exists to help inspire creativity in story. It should not be used to lord over anyone at your game table, whether that be a dungeon master or player. Be flexible and willing to modify what exists to accommodate the story the table wishes to tell. Vhaeraun looks to further the presence of Drow on the surface world. He also is the Drow deity of thieves and openly opposes the tyrannical matriarchy imposed by Lolth. I am Benjamin Dignan, and welcome once again to Religion in the Realms. Titles. Some of the different titles Vhaeraun goes by are the Masked Lord, the Masked God of Night, and the Shadow. Portfolio and Domains. Vhaeraun's portfolio covers thievery, drow males, territory, and evil activity on the surface world. The suggested domains for 5th edition clerics of Vhaeraun are war and trickery. I would like to voice my opinion, however, that war should not be a suggested domain for Vhaeraun. I hope as I explain who Vhaeraun is further and what his church does in the Forgotten Realms that the war domain should not be listed as a suggested domain for his clerics. Appearance and manifestations. Vhaeraun is commonly depicted as a handsome male drow clothed in black. One of Vhaeraun's defining features is his hair and eyes that change in color depending on his disposition. If his hair and eyes are red, he is angry. If gold, he is feeling victorious. If blue, he is feeling amused, and green, he is feeling either puzzled or curious. Vhaeraun wields 2 named weapons, a longsword named Night Shadow and a short sword named Shadow Flash. Night Shadow is mechanically a longsword of quickness that is said to be invisible in darkness. It is enchanted with a spell that allows Vhaeraun to turn the blades of opponents to do damage to their wielder. Shadow Flash is a +1 short sword that can emit a flash of light that can temporarily blind an opponent. Vhaeraun wears a named cloak that is self-titled Vhaeraun's Cloak. It acts much like a cloak of invisibility and appears to be completely see-through. If someone is able to take the cloak from him, it fades away to nothingness. Another remarkable feature of the cloak is that it can absorb 7 spells, regardless of level, per day. As long as a magic item does not conflict with Vhaeraun's chaotic evil alignment, he can wield it, ignoring any potential class restrictions. While he is incapable of spellcasting, he can cast any spells present in the minds of any of his followers that are within 180 feet of him. He moves as if he was under the effect of a permanent pass without a trace spell and can choose to turn invisible at will. He cannot be affected by any illusion unless the illusion is cast by another deity and cannot be charmed. Vhaeraun can manifest through a fluttering black shadow that will form into a black half-mask that will form over the face of a favored follower. When on the face of this follower, it will grant the wearer true seeing, the ability to strike against even the toughest of opponents, the inability to fail at any acrobatics check, move as if under pass without a trace, and heal for a small amount. Vhaeraun will show his displeasure through the same shadowy half-mask that will appear before the disfavored and emit a mocking laugh. All those hearing it must save against a fear spell. Vhaeraun also shows influence through a host of different shadowy and dark creatures, from as simple as a simple black cat right up to a shadow dragon. Gemstones associated with the influence of Vhaeraun are typically black in color, gemstones like jet, onyx, and hematite. Personal history. Vhaeraun is the son of Corellon, Lorethian, and Lolth, twin brother to Illustrae and father of Selvatarm. He was cast out of Arvindor with Lolth when he aided her in the attempt to usurp the power of Corellon. During the attempt, Vhaeraun was able to trap Cyanine Moonbow, but Cyanine broke out and was able to expose the true nature of Lolth's plans. Since then, Vhaeraun has had a particular hatred reserved for seeing Moonbow. Centuries later, Vhaeraun battled heavily for the right to be the patron deity of the Illithiri elves, only to be stymied by Illustri. This allowed Ganondorr and Lolth to claim a significant portion of the Illithiri, who would go on to become the Drow after the Crown Wars. In 1372 Dale Reckoning, during the Silence of Lolth, a Vhaeraunite cleric was able to summon Vhaeraun to Lolth's personal realm in the Demon Web Pits, where Vhaeraun was able to wound Lolth greatly. However, her guardian and Vhaeraun's son, Silvatarm, lashed out in defense, and the two of them tumbled down into the darkness of the abyss. In 1375 Dale Reckoning, Vhaeraun and his worshippers developed a plot to take down his sister Illustri. Vhaeraun was able to enter into Illustri's realm, but she became warned of his presence and was able to cut him down. For a short time before the Second Sundering, Illustri had absorbed Vhaeraun's aspect to become the Masked Lady. Following the Second Sundering, Vhaeraun and Illustri have become separate, but have been able to put aside their differences in order to better fight Lolth. In Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, which takes a multiverse-wide approach to the lore, Vhaeraun is removed from all familiar relationships with Corellon, Illustri, and Silvatarm, though it is mentioned to still be Lolth's son. Vhaeraun has had his face scarred and tongue removed by Lolth for his disobedience. Likewise, he has been mistaken by some to be the Greyhawk deity Keptolo. This persona of Vhaeraun is very different to that of his Forgotten Realms counterpart. Personality. Vhaeraun is a chaotic evil deity. He can be vain and haughty. He also does not forget slights and is well known to hold grudges. He will use any underhanded tactic to further his goals, but though it is hypocrisy, Vhaeraun becomes enraged if the same underhanded tactics are used against him. Vhaeraun acts in open opposition to Lolth's ideas of female superiority, preaching equality amongst males and females. He asks his followers to cooperate with the other elven races, but at the same time shuns gnomes and dwarves, but will tolerate humans and halflings. Vhaeraun calls for the Drow to rise up to the surface again, together to become the great people that they are capable of. Personal realms. Vhaeraun's personal realm is known as Elaniath. Elaniath has moved between two planes of existence over the centuries. For a long time, it existed on a layer of Carceri known as Colothus. Eventually, Elaniath came to reside on the Demon Web Pits, amongst the other personal realms of most of the Dark Seldarine. Following the Silence of Lolth, Elaniath was kicked back out to Carceri. As of the events of the Second Sundering, it is unknown which plane Elaniath now resides on. Elaniath is a small realm that is nothing more than a place of seclusion and hiding for Vhaeraun when he needs to escape from the wrath of powerful deities like Lolth. Allies and allegiances. Vhaeraun holds masked the Vhaeraunian god of thieves and shadow, Shar, the goddess of shadow, and Tolona, goddess of poison and disease, as acquaintances. They share similar aspects, but this is a tenuous relationship as each is likely looking for a weakness to exploit in the other. Such is their nature. Enemies. Vhaeraun holds contempt for all other deities of the Dark Seldarine and the entire Seldarine. Many of the patron deities of the Underdark peoples hold animosity for Vhaeraun as well. Notably, Sorololi of the Halfling Pantheon is also an enemy of Vhaeraun. Sorololi is a deity of house and home and dislikes any deities who espouse the virtues of theft. Deity and Avatar Stat Blocks. You can find the stat blocks for Vhaeraun's avatar for 2nd edition in the following supplements: Demi-Human Deities and the Drow of the Underdark. I was unable to locate a stat block for Vhaeraun as a deity in other supplements. Symbols. Vhaeraun has two similar symbols. The first is a half-black mask that covers the upper portion of one's face. The second is a half-black mask with inset blue lenses. Beliefs. Dogma of Vhaeraun from demi-human deities. The shadows of the Masked Lord must cast off the tyranny of the Spider Queen, and forcibly reclaim their birthright and rightful place in the night above. The existing Drow matriarchies must be smashed, and the warring practices of twisted Lolth done away with so that the Drow are welded into a united people, not a squabbling gaggle of rival houses, clans, and aims. Vhaeraun will lead his followers into a society where the Illithiri once again reign supreme over the other lesser races, and there is equality between males and females. Priests of Vhaeraun must encourage, lead, or aid bands of Drow and allied chaotic evil creatures in thievery and instigate plots, intrigues, and events to continually increase Drow influence and real power in the surface realms. They must manipulate trade, creatures, and intrigues designed to lessen the power of and frustrate the plans of Drow priests, particularly those who serve Lolth, and continually foment rebellion or disobedience among Drow males. Drow thieves in need must be aided, healed, bailed out of jail, or forcibly rescued. Drow men oppressed or under attack by Drow women must be physically aided in any circumstance. Cruelties against Drow men must be avenged. Presence of the Faith. Worshippers of Vhaeraun are typically chaotic evil, chaotic neutral, or neutral evil in alignment. The faith of Vhaeraun is known by a rare few who are not Drow upon the surface world. Any knowledge of Vhaeraun and other Drow societies, dominated by another Drow deity, is hidden away and not acknowledged. Worship of a rival faith like Vhaeraun's in a Lolth-dominated society is a huge risk. Those who have been caught before suffer under physical and magical interrogation before being executed. It is possible to find the symbols of Vhaeraun placed secretively in tunnels surrounding most Drow cities where the presence of his faith is not strong. Many Drow who travel extensively throughout the Underdark are worshippers of Vhaeraun, and a good number can be found in secretive sects in Drow cities, especially those who find themselves in lower castes. Fallen Illithri, Vhaeraun has the second most followers up on the surface world. These communities are placed in areas where surface Drow can be hidden away from the sun. Hierarchy and structure of the Clergy. The Church of Vhaeraun has a fluid structure with many independent sects that have little communication between them. The vast majority of Vhaeraun worshippers are male Drow. The Church of Vhaeraun is similar to the Church of Illithri in that there is little to no infighting and cooperation exists amongst the different sects across Vhaeraun, something that is quite different from the other Dark Seldarine faiths. The whole of the Vhaeraunite clergy are known as the Masked. Those who are novices are called the Uncloaked. Those in the upper levels are known as Night Shadows. High-ranking priests in the clergy are known by unique titles that they adopt for themselves. There are a few priests and priestesses who have left the Church of Lolth to join the Church of Vhaeraun. These unique members of the faith are known as masked traders. Responsibilities and duties. Vhaeraun worshippers and clergy are trained in the ways of intrigue, trickery, and treachery. They love nothing better than challenging the established order, especially if it is challenging the order in a Drow society influenced by another Drow deity. Many clerics are tasked with establishing Drow communities up on the surface world. The manufacture, application, and experimentation with poison is both practiced and taught throughout the church. Priests of Vhaeraun are instructed to help in theft, spying, and instigating in all hopes of furthering the presence of Drow up on the surface. Likewise, they are to do what they can at all times to help subvert the practices of Lolth-dominated societies that preach inequality. All that the clergy and worshippers do up on the surface is to be carried out during the nighttime. Clerics are known to prepare their spells at dusk rather than typically in the morning, which is the custom for most clerics. Orders and priestly bodies. Some of the various titles given to the bodies of Vhaeraun worship include the Ascendant Darkness, the Black Moons, the Dark Mantles, the Deep Rogues, the Enveloping Night, the Raven's Caw, Shadow Hunters, Silent Sables, and Twilight's Heralds. The Dark Dagger is a secretive organization of Vhaeraun worshippers who operate behind the scenes of various criminal organizations, particularly thieves' guilds. Members are immune to most poisons as they are exposed to many during their training to grant them this immunity. Their numbers are vastly drow, but some humans and half-elves have found their place in the organization. They are also known to set up hidden temples to Vhaeraun. They are known to be active in Skullport, Termish, and the Vhaeraun Reach, Calamshan, and in the coast cities around the Sea of Fallen Stars. Jezred Chalsin is a powerful body of Vhaeraun worshippers and assassins run by beings known as Drow Dragons, who are capable of shape-shifting between Drow and Shadow Dragon form. They operate out of Chalsin and will be discussed in greater detail later. Appearance and dress. If a member of the faith needs to appear out in public, they will wear a mask to conceal their identity, much like Vhaeraun. Clergy of Vhaeraun will wear half masks, loose shirts, fitted pants, and leather boots, all which are typically black. A priest is never without a bladed weapon, and many carry more than just one at all times. Some priests have their half-masks enchanted to be their holy symbols, while others will make use of the same symbol but in a different form, like a pendant. While adventuring, priests are to only wear leather armor and dress in dark colors. Rituals. In praise to Vhaeraun, the priests take a portion of the loot stolen from their enemies and place them in black bowl-shaped altars. In these bowls, the loot is melted and offered up to Vhaeraun. Vhaeraun takes particular joy in any items fetched from Lolth held dominions, especially if they are known religious items. On Midwinter's Night, the Church of Vhaeraun celebrates the Masked Lord's Embrace as a religious holy day. This is an introspective night where each follower secludes themselves. There they cast darkness and levitation in a state of sensory deprivation to think on ways to further the aims of Vhaeraun in the coming year. On the surface, during the nights when a new moon is out, Vhaeraun worshippers hunt for a stag as a form of religious practice. Some drow are known to come up from the Underdark to participate as well. When the stag is captured, its beating heart and antlers are taken from the beast and offered in a dark rite in the name of Vhaeraun. General locations of temples and shrines. Places of worship to Vhaeraun found in the Underdark are protected by overlapping darkness spells. Worshippers typically place the temples in caverns to serve as amphitheaters. The high vaulted ceiling of the cavern is usually decorated with a purposeful placement of a realm-specific gemstone known as Beljurals. These gems absorb heat and light and emit a dull glow visible in the darkness. This is done to emulate the night sky up on the surface world. Up on the surface, places of worship dedicated to Vhaeraun are placed in caves near a thick forest canopy that does not allow much daylight to reach the forest floor. These places of worship are purposefully placed close by surface communities devoted to Vhaeraun. Specific places of worship. Chalsin is home to an elite group of Vhaeraunite assassins known as the Jezred Chalsin, who weave their plots throughout the Underdark. A long time ago, this Underdark city was taken over by Shadow Dragons. During their rule over the Drow, they began to interbreed and a distinct half-Drow, half-Shadow Dragon race emerged known as the Zekelen. The Zekelen were eventually able to overthrow their draconic masters. Eventually, forces from Menzoberranzan began to make their way to Chalsin to claim it in the name of Lolth. Warned by Vhaeraun, the Zekelen made use of teleportation magic to flee to the Shadowfell. In the Shadowfell, the Zekelen set up a city known as Chal Mersin. The worship of Vhaeraun grew during this time, and the church made a concerted effort to put an end to the infiltration of Molagrims, shapeshifters from the Shadowfell. The assassins of House Jazred were established at this time to combat any further shapeshifting infiltrations. Learning from the Molagrim, House Jazred were able to separate some of their numbers to become Drow dragons who were capable of shapeshifting between Drow form and Shadow Dragon form. Eventually, House Jazred and the Vhaeraunite clergy started squabbling. In an act of compromise, House Jazred returned to Vhaeraun to claim Chalsin once more, where they renamed themselves the Jazred Chalsin. Since then, the assassins of Chalsin have been involved in many plots to overthrow Lolth's position in the realms. Down in the spires of Myr, where once the Forest of Myr existed, many surface Drow settlements beneath the forest canopy thrived. Here existed towns where Vhaeraun was venerated. In the towns of Dal Nothax and Iskashal were two churches to Vhaeraun, the Hall of Midnight Bloodshed and the Onyx Labyrinth. Both were attacked extensively by Lolth worshippers from Gwalidur, but they served as a public front to protect the greater Vault of Cloaked Midnight in the Underdark. The vault lies closer to Mount Serengard. With the destruction of the Forest of Myr by the Spell Plague, the status of all three locations is unknown, though it is possible the Vault of Cloaked Midnight still operates in the Underdark. An unnamed community and temple to Vhaeraun can be found 2 days south from the river Desserin, close to the Lost Peaks in the High Forest. Once dominated by the cults of Vhaeraun and Gwalidur, their inland lies in ruins after the Spell Plague. However, the Jazred Chalsin established a fosterage under one of their leaders. This Drow dragon is said to still maintain this fosterage despite the ruins and wild magic that surround the area. In the Drow city of Shashamath, beneath the far hills, is the Tower of the Masked Mage. Vhaeraun worshippers constructed a temple to Vhaeraun in a large stalactite. In this temple, worshippers study various magics to help them conceal themselves better through shadow and illusion. They also fashion magic items to help them in this regard. A wandering nomadic clan of Drow worshippers known as Clan Oscovin moved to many different places in the realms before finally residing in the woods of Cormanthor. Mostly composed of Drow members, the clan has welcomed both other elves, humans, and half-elves into their clan as well. House Jarl is an exiled noble house from Menzoberranzan who have settled in the forest of Cormanthor. Here they have set up their own fortifications and made use of the ruins and magic left behind by the surface elves who left during the retreat. Clan Oscovin and House Jarl work cooperatively with one another, likely as a result of their shared faith in Vhaeraun. Character options. For 2nd edition players, you can find the following character options. In the Demi-Human Deities supplement, you can find the Vhaeraun-specific specialty priest class known as the Dark Mask. In the same supplement, Demi-Human Deities, you will find the Vhaeraun-specific specialty priest class known as the Masked Trader for clergy who have come over from the Church of Lolth. For 3rd edition players, in the Lords of Darkness supplement, you can find the Dark Mask Prestige class for Vhaeraun worshippers. As I do in every deity-specific podcast, I have come up with a custom background, this one specifically designed for Vhaeraun worshippers. For your 2 skill proficiencies, you can look to take Deception and Stealth. For either your 2 language or tool proficiencies, I have recommended the Poisoner's Kit and Thieves tools. For your equipment, I would take the Criminal's equipment, but I would ask your DM if you could swap out the crowbar for the Holy Symbol of Vhaeraun. And for last but not least, the feature, I would take the Shelter of the Faithful feature that is available from the Acolyte background in the Player's Handbook. The following are subclasses that would be fun and fitting for worshippers of Vhaeraun in 5th edition. Most of these revolve around secrecy, shadow, and stealth. For the Bard class, you have the College of Whispers from Xanthar's Guide to Everything. It is a subclass that revolves around intrigue, sowing lies, and deceit, which would serve as the perfect face for the Church of Vhaeraun. For the Cleric, you have the two suggested domains, the Domain of Trickery and the Domain of War. I still don't see how War is applicable, but it is definitely still an option available to you as a player. For the Monk, you have the Way of the Shadow from the Player's Handbook. The Way of the Shadow would be perfect for those who are trying to roleplay an agent, a shadowy infiltrator, anything in that respect. For the Ranger class, you have the Gloomstalker subclass from Xanthar's Guide to Everything. The Gloomstalker I could see serving as a guide in the Underdark for Vhaeraun worshippers, especially one who goes to other Drow communities to guide them towards Vhaeraun-specific communities. It's not often that I get the chance to say this, but really any of the subclasses that can be found for the Rogue class are a very good thematic fit for anyone looking to play a worshipper of Vhaeraun. After all, Vhaeraun is a god of thievery and deceit and shadow. Finally, for the Sorcerer class, you have the Shadow Sorcerer, which can be found in Xanthar's Guide to Everything. I could see a Shadow Sorcerer being a very valued member in the Clergy, or in the Church as a whole. Specialists in Shadow Magic would be deeply valued in the Church of Vhaeraun. Dungeon Master Options. For 5th edition Dungeon Masters, you can make use of many shadow-based creatures and demons who would aid Vhaeraun and his followers. The few here I list are just suggestions that I picked out from the Monster Manual of Volo's Guide to Monsters. So in the Monster Manual, you have the Shadow Dragon template. There is a stat block in there for a young red Shadow Dragon, but of course you can extend that over to the other different types of dragons. Also in there, you have smoke methods in the shadow stat blocks. In Volo's Guide to Monsters, I could see making use of the Shadow Mastiff, the Yethhound, and the Dragloth. Now, Dragloth are deeply associated with both the churches of Selvatarm and Lolth, but I have found in my research for Vhaeraun that he can have a few Dragloths in his service. In the 3rd edition supplement, if you have it available to you, called The Dragons of Vhaeraun, you can find the instructions to build a Drow Dragon, much like the ones who rule in Chalcin. You could also easily rework a Shadow Dragon from the Monster Manual by giving them access to spellcasting and the change shape ability that you see in the Metallic Dragon's stat block. There are many Drow and generic NPC stat blocks across the official source books for 5th edition that can be utilized by a Dungeon Master to fit in with the Church of Vhaeraun. For the Drow specifically, in the Monster Manual, you have the stat block for the Drow and the Drow Elite Warrior. And for the recently released Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, you have the Drow Shadow Blade. You can also make use, of course, of the generic stat blocks for NPCs found in the Monster Manual and Volo's Guide to Monsters. In the Monster Manual, I can see a Dungeon Master getting use out of the Acolyte, Assassin, and Spy stat block. And in Volo's Guide to Monsters, the Martial Arts Adept, and also the Master Thief stat blocks. For a magic weapon specific to the Church of Vhaeraun, Vhaeraun's favorite weapon is the short sword, but really that kind of extends across all the way towards all blades. And here I have just kind of listed a few, well, more than a few, but some items from the Dungeon Master's Guide that I think would be fitting for the Church of Vhaeraun. So there's the Amulet of Proof Against Detection and Location, Boots of Elvenkind, all of the various cloaks, and I mean that. Dagger of Venom, Dust of Disappearance, the Glamored Studded Leather, Gloves of Thievery, the 9 Live Stealer in short sword form, Oil of Sharpness, Potion of Gaseous Form, Potion of Invisibility, Potion of Mind Reading, Potion of Poison, the Ring of Mind Shielding, the Scimitar of Speed, Sending Stones, Slippers of Spider Climbing, and the Sword of Life Stealing. Finally, a Dungeon Master can make use of some of the common rarity magic items found in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Here I have picked out the Boots of False Tracks and the Rope of Mending. Alright, thank you for listening to Religion in the Realms. If you're interested in keeping up with the release of future episodes, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and YouTube, and follow the podcast Twitter account at Realms Religion. If you wish to get in touch with me personally, my personal Twitter is at Shiv's Embrace. That is SHIVSEMBRACE. Next episode, we will be starting a new series on another pantheon in the Forgotten Realms. The Vhaeraunian Pantheon is a large pantheon with close to 50 deities in it. With that, the first episode on the Vhaeraunian Pantheon will be on Istitia, the deity associated with the element of water. Until next time, may Tymora look kindly upon your dice rolls, Helm protect you, and Lathander light your path. Music for this episode: Eternal Terminal by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0.